Hi guys, and welcome to a brief lesson to discuss the analytical writing regarding the Hunger Games as well as the two theorists that we have been studying, John Locke and Thomas Hobbes. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to analyze how the fictitious government of Panem applies to the political theories of Locke or Hobbes. Students will also develop their own theories of the purpose of government through the lens of someone else's theories of the purpose of government. As far as the note-taking guide, the due date for that is approaching. And I want to talk about it so that we can get organized and get ready to write a stellar essay. I know when we talk about organization, some of you, it comes naturally. Others of you really struggle. This can ignite some source of anxiety or stress because it's doing it in a way that's very meticulous. But I promise you that it is in your best interest, and I'm not doing it for my own health. I promise. In the successful organization, no detail is too small to escape close attention. This is an important quote to keep in mind because, while we were writing, or while you guys were writing the note-taking guide, we kind of were rushing through it to get it done because we were watching the movies, jotting down times, and it was hard to pay attention to detail. Your final note-taking guide is going to be a start of the rough draft of your essay. And once you lay the groundwork in for this, everything else will kind of fall into place. The big concept here is that you guys are going to be writing a short essay in MLA format that reflects on the role of government in the movie The Hunger Games and its relationship to the theories of John Locke or Thomas Hobbes. So your finalized note-taking guide should look as this is kind of what my expectations are. So you need to pick one theorist who would support the government of Panem. Your note-taking guide that you use to watch the movie is going to kind of be more simplified. Right now, you have both Locke and Hobbes on that sheet. For your final note-taking guide, you're just going to be picking one. The context, which is column 1, what is going on in a particular scene that supports either the purpose of government, state of nature, or social contract. Explain the scene, and then also, if you have a timestamp, provide that as well, just so we can go back to that if you need to. Evidence, which is column 2, is where you provide evidence in TLQ form from our readings of the theories of either theorist, and that sounds kind of funky, so I'm just going to get rid of that and just say of the theories. The wordiness of that was strange. I apologize. Also, you need to analyze which theorist does this context support and how. And so remember, context is a particular scene, not the evidence. So a lot of you were getting confused with the differences between context and evidence, and that's largely because you weren't referring back to what each column required. Make sure that you're answering the prompt, okay? Also, make sure that it's in TLQ form. You're going to be introducing the quote before just stamping it in there. This is not unfamiliar to you guys. This is the note-taking guide example. Again, column 1 is that context, what's going on in this particular scene. Now, my example is kind of vague, but it kind of gives you an example of how I want this to be worded and written. The example says, the movie depicts a society in which support from the government is awarded through a competition. Specifically, members of society must battle to the death for basic human needs such as food. That's context. That's specifically from the movie, which is more so a summary of the movie, but you get my gist in terms of how I want this to be worded. Now, column 2 is evidence. Provide evidence from our readings of the theorist. So I wrote, while the selection of participants for the competition reveals an unwillingness from the district members, the drive to win speaks to the state of instinctual savagery and describes, as described by Hobbes, in his theory of human nature. For example, Hobbes defines his belief of humanity as a state of perpetual conflict, famously describing a life without government as nasty, brutish, and short. This is a quote directly from icivics.org, so I've added my citation in MLA format. As you can see, I kind of introduced my quote. I explained how that there was a relationship, and I explained and introduced what the quote was about. As far as the third column, which theorist does this support, you're going to just provide a little bit more detail. So the Hunger Game leads to one district being bathed in riches by the government. The losing district resumes life as Hobbes describes it, without the role of government. Brutish, short, and civil, these community members are in a constant state of survival, causing them to be selfish. Ultimately, civil unrest of Panem speaks directly to Hobbes' theory of human nature. I want you guys to be as detailed as possible, and not to drill it in your throat, but I want you to pay attention to not only organization, but the detail. Everything counts, because remember, this is going to set the groundwork for writing your essay. If you do this right, everything else will fall into place. Now, as far as the note-taking guide, since it's going to be typed, it's going to end up looking like this in each column. So you're going to have all of these filled out across the board and in detail. I know that's really small, and I'm sorry that you can't see it, but based on the previous slides, you get a gist of what's in there. Now, as far as my expectations, I want you guys to see what my expectations are for all of you regarding this note-taking guide. First off, I need you to choose a theorist. If you have columns with, Locke in one, Hobbes in another, you're not paying attention or not following the directions that I'm asking you to do. You have to pick one, and some of you might find this really difficult. Others of you might be like, oh, hey, this is super easy. I already knew who I was going to go with. But you got to pick one. You need to type a detailed note-taking guide, be explanatory and pay attention to detail. Make sure you're using that TLQ form and introducing your quote, being descriptive and explanatory. You need to check spelling, punctuation, and grammar. If I read this and it doesn't make sense to me, I might ask you, hey, Billy Joe, will you please read this to me out loud? And if you read it out loud and you look at me and say, hey, that doesn't make any sense, which some of you sometimes do, that's a problem. I want you guys to go back and proofread your work. I understand that this isn't your final essay, but you got to take pride in your work. Again, this is going to help set the groundwork, and you have 2 days to do it. Now, if everybody says, oh, I didn't need 2 days, well, then we're just going to get straight on into the essay. So use that time that's given to you. Don't rush through it. This isn't a competition to see who can get done what first. You have 2 days to work on this. Take advantage of your work days, use your time wisely, and utilize the resources in Schoology. And I'm really sorry that this is not necessarily organized. Oh, there we go. What is happening? Sorry, guys. If you go into the Living Constitution folder and open up the handouts and in-class activities, in there you'll find all the sources: Thomas Hobbes, iCivics reading, John Locke's iCivics reading, and then you have the 2 views of the social contract. Those are your 3 sources that you can use for your essay. So if you're still trying to figure out, which quote am I going to use? Where am I going to get it from? That's where they are. I'll remind you of this, and we've talked about it in class, so you should be aware. As far as the completed note-taking guide, you'll see it on the upcoming folder side. So it says completed note-taking guide for the Hunger Games Analytical Writing due December 6th, and I apologize, that is a mistake. I will change it now to December 7th, and by the time you look at this in Schoology, it'll be all finished. Listen, guys, I really appreciate your time in watching this, and I look forward to seeing the work that you put into this, and I look forward to discussing with you and kind of picking your brains on what theories you're going to go with and why. I will see all of you on Thursday. Some of you I will be lucky enough to see on Wednesday. I hope that you guys had a wonderful day with the sub, and I hope that you guys are being safe and being smart. See you soon.